Your cat came to you. They initiated it, which matters, because cats almost never do things by accident. They walked over, pressed themselves against your hand, maybe even climbed into your lap, and for a while everything felt mutual and warm. And then, without any obvious signal, they simply got up and walked away. Not in a hurry, not upset, not going anywhere in particular, just done. And you were left sitting there with that familiar, slightly deflating feeling that you did something wrong, or that the cat's affection has some invisible timer attached to it that runs out before you're ready. Almost every cat owner carries a version of this feeling, and almost every cat owner has misread what actually just happened. Hello friends, I want to thank everyone who watches this video and supports the channel. Every like, every comment, and every share means more than you think for me and for my dreams. Without delay, let's begin. The walkaway mid-pet is one of the most consistently misinterpreted behaviors in the entire landscape of cat-human interaction. The misreading is understandable because the emotional logic that most people apply to it is drawn from human social experience, where someone leaving in the middle of a warm interaction would generally be considered at minimum a little rude, and at maximum a sign that something is wrong. We apply that template to the cat, and we arrive at conclusions like rejection or moodiness or the popular cultural narrative that cats simply do not care enough to stay. None of those conclusions are accurate, and all of them obscure something genuinely worth understanding about how cats experience and manage physical closeness with the people they love. To understand what the walkaway actually communicates, you first need to understand something fundamental about the feline sensory experience of being touched. Human skin contains a relatively modest concentration of tactile receptors, which is part of why we can sustain prolonged physical contact without difficulty. Cat skin is structured differently. The density of sensory nerve endings in a cat's skin is significantly higher than in ours, particularly along the back, the base of the tail, and the belly. This means that the same stroke that feels pleasant and moderate to your hand is delivering a considerably more intense sensory signal to your cat's body. Tactile input that starts as pleasurable does not remain at a fixed level of pleasantness indefinitely. It accumulates. The nervous system of a cat processes each stroke not as a discrete, independent event, but as part of a building sum of sensory stimulation. And at some point, that sum crosses a threshold beyond which continued input begins to feel like too much rather than just right. This is the mechanism that underlies most mid-pet walkaways, and it is known in behavioral science as tactile overstimulation or petting-induced arousal. What matters most about this framing is that it is entirely physiological. The cat did not change their mind about you. They did not decide you were suddenly less interesting or less worthy of their time. Their sensory threshold was reached, and leaving was the appropriate response to that internal signal. The departure is not a social statement. It is a physical one, as involuntary in its own way as pulling your hand back from something hot. And understanding this completely reframes the emotional meaning of the moment. Here is the layer that most people find genuinely surprising. Research into feline tactile sensitivity has shown that the threshold at which petting crosses from pleasant to overwhelming is not fixed. It changes from day to day, from hour to hour, and even across the course of a single petting session based on the cat's current physiological and emotional state. A cat that is slightly more alert than usual, or that has already had a more stimulating day than normal, will reach their threshold faster than the same cat on a calm and settled afternoon. A cat in the early stages of petting will typically have a higher threshold than the same cat 10 minutes into what has become an extended session. This variability is why the same cat can sometimes stay in your lap for an hour and other times leave after 3 minutes. They are not being inconsistent. The variable is not their feeling toward you. The variable is their current physiological starting point. Imagine sitting on the couch on a Sunday afternoon. Your cat jumps up and settles beside you, and you begin stroking their back. For the first several minutes, everything is calm and mutual. Then, very subtly, something changes. The skin along their back twitches slightly, as if trying to shake off a fly. Their tail, which had been resting still, begins to move in a slow, deliberate sweep at the tip. Their head turns fractionally toward your hand. These are the pre-departure signals, and they occur in most cats reliably before the walkaway itself. The twitching skin, the slow tail movement, the repositioning of the head, these are not signs of irritation in any emotional sense. They are the physical expression of a nervous system that is approaching its sensory ceiling. They are your cat telling you in the clearest physical language they have that the stimulation is accumulating faster than it is dissipating, and that a transition is coming. The reason most owners miss these signals is not inattention, it is timing. These pre-departure cues are brief, subtle, and easy to miss when your attention is on the pleasantness of the interaction rather than on the monitoring of your cat's physical responses. And because we are not trained to look for them, most of us only register the departure itself, which feels abrupt and socially loaded, when in fact it was preceded by a complete and legible sequence of communication that simply went unread. This connects to something important about the nature of feline communication more broadly. Cats do not have the option of saying, with words, that they are approaching their limit and need a moment. What they have instead is a behavioral vocabulary that is precise and consistent, but requires the observer to understand its terms. The tail that begins to twitch is a word. The skin ripple is a sentence. The slow turn of the head toward your hand is a paragraph. By the time the cat actually stands up and walks away, they have delivered a complete communication in a language that was entirely present and available, but that most of us were never taught to read. The walk away is not the communication. It is the end of a communication that began several signals earlier. Understanding this changes the practical experience of petting a cat in a way that most owners find transforms the quality of their interactions almost immediately. When you know what pre-departure signals look like, you can respond to them before the departure occurs. A brief pause, a lighter touch, a shift in location to an area less neurologically dense can often reset the accumulating sensory experience and extend the interaction considerably. Not by ignoring the cat's signals, but by responding to them. And the cat, when their signal is read and respected, often settles again rather than leaving, because what they needed in that moment was not distance from you, but a brief reduction in stimulation. The interaction was not over, the current intensity was over. And there is an enormous difference between those two things. The emotional relationship implication of this is one worth sitting with deliberately. A cat that walks away mid-pet and then returns to you later, sometimes within minutes, is telling you something specific about the architecture of their attachment. The departure was about their sensory threshold. The return is about their bond. They left because their body needed them to. They came back because something in them is oriented toward you, toward your presence, toward the particular quality of what it feels like to be near you, and that orientation reasserts itself once the sensory accumulation has had time to dissipate. They are not coming back despite the walk-away. The walk-away and the return are both part of the same relationship dynamic, one in which closeness is genuinely desired, limits are genuinely real, and both things can be true simultaneously without either one cancelling out the other. There is one more layer that reframes the entire behavior at its deepest level. A cat that walks away from you mid-pet, rather than staying and becoming agitated or defensive, is a cat that trusts you enough to leave. In a relationship where the cat felt unsafe or uncertain, staying and managing the discomfort would often be the behavioral choice, because leaving might feel riskier than tolerating too much stimulation. The easy departure is, paradoxically, evidence of security. It reflects a cat that has learned, through accumulated experience with you, that leaving is safe, that you will not react badly to it, that the relationship does not require them to endure past their comfort in order to maintain your goodwill. They walked away because they trust that when they come back, you will still be there, and that the closeness between you will still be available on terms that work for both of you. Maybe that is the most important reframe of everything in this script. When your cat walks away, they are not withdrawing from the relationship. They are exercising a kind of autonomy within it. The autonomy of a creature that feels secure enough to honor its own limits because it trusts that those limits will be respected. The walk-away is not the opposite of closeness. In the emotional vocabulary of a cat who feels genuinely safe with you, it is part of what closeness looks like. They left, but they were never really gone. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help me achieve my life dream. Because at the end of the day, my friend, we both love cats. And goodbye.